sọ gị Chukwu ka ị na-abata, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Anya bịawa ịsọpụrụ gị ugbu a, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Chukwu nna n'ụlọ gị ka ị na-akpọ gị, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Otito na-adịrị gị mgbe niile, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Ụmụ Eliwayi kọta n'otu, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Ka anyị jikọfe ya ofufe Guardian, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Guardianism bụ ịhụnanya n'udo, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Butere anyị ụzọ kpetara anyị azụ, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Bịa o bịakwute ya, bịa o bịakwute ya, bịakwute ya bịa zuru ike. Ise ya
I just realized that I was muted. Whatever you touch today, what you speak on shall manifest into reality. And whatever you touch will turn into gold. I am Dibia, Dr. Wonyo Hosimiri, and I am your host on Chism Live. It is my pleasure to welcome you. We are going to have a wonderful conversation today. The conversation today is the conclusion of our 2 weeks. We've run this for 2 weeks, African Spirituality in Integrative Metaphysics. But before we get started, let me just share these little points that I want you to know. Follow us on African Spirituality, Chism Live on YouTube, and also follow us on live, Chism Live on Facebook. And also follow us on Global Faith Ministries of Chiism, Guardianism on Facebook. And for those of you who don't know, Chiism, Guardianism, Chiism being the Igbo word for Guardianism, was founded by Ahanke Oke Onyoha, who is now our honorable ancestor. He has joined the ancestors about 10 years ago. And he's still in our hearts, it's still in our minds, and we are so grateful to him. And indeed, my mother, who has passed away as well, and they all entered the ancestral world. And I know they are watching us, and they are quite pleased, I might add, that we have continued the program, the movement. We have not stopped, and we shall not stop, because what we say here is all about the truth. And the truth, they say, shall set you free. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I would just want to share this message with you, because I do spiritual counseling. And this young lady was concerned that, Chineke is not answering her prayer. She's been asking for this and asking for that, and it's not manifesting into reality. And I had to tell her that she needs to remember this. Chineke never fails. And that goes for all of you. Know that. Chineke never fails. Why it may seem as if you can call out and get an answer immediately, but Chineke does not fail to answer sincere calls. Sometimes the calls are selfish. Sometimes what we ask for are not what we should be asking for. We will call and we have no patience. We want it. I've always said this. If you get what you want immediately when you want it, it may not be what you want. You may not be prepared. And Holy Spirit knows if you're prepared for what you're asking for, or even if what you're asking for is what you should be asking for. May not want to give it to you. And if you're given what you want when you wanted it at that moment, it may not happen. We tend to have patience when we call a friend on the phone and she doesn't answer. We call and call and call until she answers. But somehow we feel if we call Chineke immediately, we should get an answer. But that's not how it works. When we call Chineke once and only half expect an answer, then unfortunately many of us will not get an answer. Because some of us are full of doubt, we're full of unreasonable demands, unworthy requests. Just because you ask for it doesn't mean it's going to be answered. It has to be worthy of a response. If you're asking for something to happen to an enemy and it doesn't happen to an enemy, you say that Chineke is not there. It's not a worthy prayer. It's not a worthy request. The calls that you receive from Chineke, the answers you get is if they're reasonable, if it's something worth responding to. If it's not worth responding to, you're going to get a busy signal. Only when we open our hearts and bring forth pure, unadulterated truth and rely on the Spirit to show up, we will receive the divine response that we want in a divine way, in a divine time. Be careful what you ask for. If you don't get it, it's not because Chineke doesn't answer prayers. It's because, quite frankly, it may not be something that you need at that moment. And when the time is right, you get it. Or something that's so unworthy that Chineke doesn't want to respond to it. Because if you get a response for something unworthy, you may not like it. You may not like it because sometimes some of the wishes, we make in anger. If we get it, just think about it as Igbo people. There are some things we say, because we're angry. What if that happens to somebody? You will not like that. And there's no taking back some of our ugly words. So I say this, I started this morning to let you know, yes, your prayers do get answered, but it has to make sense. It has to make sense. So on that note, now it is my pleasure to welcome my co-host, Dibia Chiedozie.
Okay,
On your head. Did I hit it on the head?
You hit it on the head.
For?
The message was on point. One thing I just wanted to add to it. Chineke answers prayers through revelations.
Mm-hmm.
You understand?
Yes.
The God you seek is in you. Your action is directly responsible or related to the response you get from the divine universe.
Say it again.
You understand what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
Madubuchi Beya, most of the blessings is going to come through somebody.
Uh-huh.
Chineke, the ancestors, the spirit world,
yes,
will reveal to you the necessary relationships to get you what you pray for. It's not going to fall from the sky. You are directly responsible for what you seek.
Yep.
How you relate to your environment, to people around you, the kind of aura that you leave out there is directly related to your response time. There's no magic wand. It doesn't fall from the sky. You pray for something, then go out and make it happen.
Make it happen. So when I say, Chineke doesn't answer, it depends on what you're asking for. Because guess what? Some of the things that you're asking for, you're not willing to go do it. But
It's magic. You're waiting for this magic. You're waiting for you're waiting for somebody to walk on water. You might be waiting for a long time.
Yeah. You have to be patient. And when I talk about patience, I mean patient. Make sure what you're asking for is what you really need.
And feasible.
Yeah, and feasible. It has to be reasonable. Guess what? If it's reasonable, you're going to go after it. Exactly. You're going to go after it.
Your
action, and that's how Chineke answers, right?
That's it. Through revelations, your actions will get you what you want.
That's it.
Open the right doors. You will meet the right people that will help you to resolve whatever issue that you may have.
That's right. That's right. Hey, listen, before remember this?
Yeah.
I just wanted to let everybody know, if you don't have a charger in your home, this is part of us being cheers or guardians, whichever one you want to use. This is Okwanzu. This is how we welcome people into our space, into our homes, into our
Yeah.
There we go. I have presented the chalk to all of you. And if you go to an African store, if you look, there's white chalk inside. This is our tradition. That's a spiritual tradition. You reach in there and you use your right finger and you smell on your left wrist. That means you're welcome. That you're welcoming your guests and also welcoming the ancestors and Chineke into the space. These are traditions that we need to keep. If we want to talk about African culture, let's not speak of it. Let's actually carry it out. Yes. Now, I will tell you, Charger, sometimes when people come to my home, I forget to use it. And then after they leave, I'll say, oh my God, I forgot to give them chalk.
Because you're in Rome. You're in Rome. You're doing as the Romans do.
Yeah.
So you drink beer, wine, and whatever.
Something else in my mind. And
let me say this right quick, just to buttress what you're saying, because you made a very important point, right? Forgetting the tradition because you're in Rome, so you're pretty much doing as the Romans do, right? So in Rome, what you're doing means something to the Roman because you're in Rome, right? In Africa, as you know, in our village in Umporode, when somebody comes and visits you, your obligation, if you want the visitation, is to provide them with that chalk and that cola. Once you provide the chalk and the cola, you have done what you're spiritually responsible to do, which means that your guests, as long as they are under your roof, they are under your protection, and you're willing to sacrifice your life to make sure that their life is protected under your roof. If you don't give them kola nut and you don't give them the chalk, it doesn't matter if you provide wine, beer, all kinds of food, chocolate chip cookies, whatever it is that you bring in, you haven't done anything. So spiritually speaking, the chalk, the kola nut is absolutely an imperative.
But next Sunday, you have to break kola nut.
Yes, I'll do that.
Next Sunday, you have to break kola nut. So anyway, having said all of this, we're talking about African spirituality in integrative. What is her name? Where's his name here? Chiedozie. I'm so sorry. Chiedozie Okoro. There you are. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, Professor. How you doing?
Professor.
I know.
Okay, madam.
I'm blushing.
He says he's blushing. Well, we don't believe that. We can't see it.
It's the truth, right?
Yeah.
To be in the presence of somebody
you just said it all. You said it all.
Yeah.
The thing there is that our problem is that we are approaching Chineke from a Christian Islamic perspective. We think it's far away up there in heaven. We do not know we are part of it, and it's part of us. And so it's a broadband, and we are like dot atoms. So we only need to activate it. And so prayer is positive energy. And so when we generate negative energy, we get negative things. So it's part of it, it's part of us. And it is governed by universal conscience. Because I once asked a friend, a Dibia Amadioha, why couldn't we use Amadioha to finish up the missionaries? And he laughed and said, look, this is not like atomic bomb or gun that you shoot. It doesn't have conscience. For you to do that, you cannot use natural things to wipe out fellow human beings. It doesn't work that way. So that's part of what Dibia has just explained to us. And that's what Dibia Chiedozie has just explained to us. We are part of it. And so what we are actually doing is to place ourselves in a position and we activate what we are part of. And so if we activate what is worthwhile, because you have to consider our culture, that so we are living in a world whereby if one thing goes wrong, it touches on virtually every other thing.
Yes.
But unfortunately, we are not living in our own spirituality. We are living within the spirituality of other civilizations that dichotomizes, it compartmentalizes, it doesn't reconcile. There's no complementarity. That's the problem.
Absolutely. Well said. I totally agree. I totally agree. Seeing things from somebody else's prism is a disservice, a total disservice to your own spiritual expectations, right? You cannot set a mark on something that you cannot enforce. You can't set a goal that you cannot achieve. You cannot set a goal that you cannot achieve. You can't set a goal that you cannot achieve and then pray.
I cannot within our spirituality. You can't set a goal for just you and you alone.
Exactly.
Because it can't set a goal for you and you alone. Our ethics it's that of
yes.
It's a communalism, and communalism is different from communism. Communism is a totally collective group way of life. Communalism is an integration of the I and the we. So the middle line between the two. So that's why we say let the group not swallow the individual. Let the individual not stifle the group. And so we are always looking for complementarity, coming to the middle. But most of our mentality and the upbringing we have today is that of individualism or extreme collectivism. And so it's going to distort a lot of what we do, and we may not get the answers we require.
Well, I want us to go back to where we stopped last conversation. You were talking about Alpha, okay? As an applied ontologist, what is your understanding of Alpha? And how does Alpha capture the essence of Igbo spirituality or constitute the basis for Igbo spirituality? Can you please answer that?
To answer that question, I have to come from integrative metaphysics to what I now call Alpha phenomenology or phenomenology of life force. Now, just like we said, Chineke, what some of us call Chukwu Okike Abiyama, is a ubiquitous spirit. It's everywhere at the same time. It's a force. It's energy wave. It's not a being seated somewhere in heaven. Then the physical universe is a manifestation of this chi, this ubiquitous chi. And for that, because the physical universe is its own physical representation, we say it's pantheism. And because its presence is in every physical thing, natural or artificial, insofar as it is coming or deriving from that which is made by Chineke itself. We say the presence of the chi in every material item is vitalism. Now, what Alpha has done, what our ancestors have done, is to look at the universe and categorize it. And when they categorize it by use of imagination, this is not science, by use of imagination, because imagination works with the subconscious world. And this subconscious world is our integration, our eke, with the ubiquitous spirit. And so, Alpha is a way of trying to know. So that's what metaphysics is. Metaphysics is a human imaginative projection into the, you can say, the subconscious world. And so we now try to see the hidden and bring it into reality. And that is why metaphysics is defined as the study of reality. And so in metaphysics, we are always looking for the hidden, the substrate, the substance. And if you go to the Western philosophy, Eastern philosophy, that's exactly what everybody is doing. So metaphysics is that tool for distilling it. Now, Alpha for us as Igbo people, the way I understand Alpha within Igbo ontology, is a pure instrumentalism for interpreting the hidden to bring it out into reality, which is why before we divine, we pick up the Alpha chaplet, we call on the universal force field, and we call on the four elements that compose the earth we live in: aka water, for earth, ori, wind, and then fire. Then we also then call on the ancestors in the middle that they should reveal the truth to us. So we throw. Now, when we throw, what our ancestors have done is to look at the earth within their own the confine of their own environment, and then look to the cosmos, and then interpret the manifestations or the manifestations of chi in reality. And they said there are two primary things we can notice: permanence and change. And then they call nature permanence, obi or obi, then change, apple. And then there are the Alpha chaplet is made up of some seeds. When the seeds are facing up, we say it's an open system. And when it is, we say it is dynamic if it is open, and we count it as one. And when it is facing down, we say it's apple. It's a closed system. And then we permutate, and by the time we permutate, the permutation takes 4, and 4 times 4 times 4 times 4 will give us 16. 16 times 4 will give us the 256. So what our ancestors have done here is to say, when we use our imagination to probe into the subconscious, the subliminal world, there are imaginatively 256 situations into which every human being can fall in at any point in time. And so what we try to do is that this person that has come, that is why we give the Alpha chaplet to the person, touch it on your chi or speak to it, push your breath to it or touch it to your chi point, meditate on it before we now divine. And then we say, let that which is in the subliminal world, the subconscious world, come into manifestation. And so that is why I say, for me, my understanding, the whole process of Alpha is a pure process of investigation, probing into the spiritual world to bring the hidden into reality so that we would know exactly what to do. And so our ancestors have now brought up Eja, Mawo, Aja, Agachu. That's to say, sacrifices or some rituals that are to be done. Now, so, and I'll stop that for now. Thank you.
That is absolutely marvelous. And, you know, in the end, as you said, metaphysical dualism under the ontological structure of being, the relationship between the physical and the spiritual world, right? Traditional ontology incorporates the Alpha,
Sure.
From the Godhead, Chineke, all the way to the ancestors. There are really 8 of them going down the line. And what you try to do is to explain reality by probing the spirit world. We understand that, or we feel there's a relationship between the two. You cannot divide the spiritual experience from the physical. Even when you go to a traditional medicine person with a certain problem and they proceed to try to investigate the reason why you're experiencing discomfort or mental issues or whatever it is, there's always this investigation between the spiritual part of what's ailing you physically. You can't cure the physical unless you investigate the metaphysical reason why you may be having these physical discomfort, which includes your physical self or mental self, right? So your explanation is absolutely on point. In the end, it deals with that relationship, that dualism, that duality, and then using the traditional ontology to try to bring it all together. Because the traditional ontology and the physical being, the relationship is totally direct. Without this traditional ontology, there's no life-sustaining forces. These life-sustaining forces are what's responsible for your physical existence in the first place.
Sure.
Imo meaning Kamalo, Fijoko, the ancestral realm, which is at the bottom of this traditional ontology. Ekurochi, right? What do you call it? Ofonogu, truth and justice and all that. All these things come together to explain your physical being and that relationship. What I want to ask you, from what you have talked about, is there a difference? Because a lot of times, we as Africans, right, Black folks in general, feel that our practices, that there's something archaic or wrong, or that it deviates from any kind of spiritual rectitude by treating our own tradition as if what we do culturally does not have the same relevance as what other people do culturally. This same traditional ontology, this same Alpha is experienced by pretty much every religion in the world. There's no religion that I know that believes in Chineke, that believes that Chineke is just one being without any relationship between Chineke and something else to form the Godhead. For example, in Christianism, there's actually 3 components to Chineke. In our traditional religion, there's 7, and then the 8th one is your ancestors, right? That's the last one. In Christianism, you have the Father, you have the Holy Ghost, then you have the Son, or the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Father does not exist in perpetuity without a relationship with something else, which is the Son, and then over here the Holy Spirit. It is these 3 that make up the Godhead.
Of course.
And if you don't recognize this relationship, you cannot truly be a Christian.
No.
You see what I'm saying? You have to recognize that.
I do.
Yeah, in Islam, it's the same thing. Because Islam and Christianism is really the same. The only difference between the two is the fact that Islam says that Muhammad was the last prophet that God sent, and that Jesus is a prophet. I mean, he's a messenger, not the Son of God.
Yeah.
That's
and then it does not believe in Trinity. It nullifies Trinity completely.
It nullifies that. You say, you go to Hindu religion, you will find that there's relationship between a Godhead and other deities, right? Because in Igbo ontology, you know, Kamalu and all these things, they're all deities. That's what they are. If you go to Norse religion, you'll also find the same relationship with Thor, Odin, right? Loki, Hail, all these other deities that is part of this ontology. If you go to paganism, pagan religion, ancient Roman religion, you see the same relationship with Zeus and these other deities.
Zeus, Apollos, and others.
Exactly. So can you, in your esteemed way, please explain to our audience that there's nothing that we're really, except for the process. The idea of this relationship is universal in every religion. so that we don't look at what we do as something that is different or on a lower level than anybody else's.
Or blasphemous. Or blasphemous.
Yeah. Your religious approach to supplication is directly related to your environment. Could you please explain to the audience your view and how we should look at what we do in comparison to what other cultures do? Just a comparative analysis.
Well, you remember the last week we talked about colonial mentality. Yeah. They say they don't free the man, but the man refused to free himself. Now, what was the essence of colonization? The essence of colonization was to make this first, primarily dislodge the African, whichever African, Igbo African, Yoruba African, Ekan African, Ibibio African, Efik African, Africans generally, dislodge us from our own spirituality, our own source. And so if you really want to colonize a man, you want to deal with a human being inside out, the first thing you do is to dislodge that human being from its own spiritual approach, its process. Now, having done that, education system was instituted to make us hate, if you like, loathe ourselves. And then by loathing ourselves, we start cursing our ancestors. Then the churches and the mosques were established to ensure that we are indoctrinated, mentally poisoned, spiritually poisoned, to hate everything ours. But of course, when we do have problems, a lot of course, as a Dibia, I also practice with the Yorubas. And so when I go to them, whether the Igbo side, the Yoruba side, you'll find people sneak behind. They sneak back. Some of these people are clergymen. Some are their followers. They sneak back home. So our own things are not done in the dark or in hidden places. Even in the offices, if you know the symbols, when you enter people's offices, you see the symbols. They are hiding it behind the cross. And I say, bring it out. So what we are suffering from, is mental poisoning. And because of that, various kinds of ideologies about mental poisoning, blackophilia, negrophobia, and all that. That is why a black man wants to make his nose to look pointed. He wants to bleach his skin to be white. He wants to do things that will make him or he look like the other. This lack of confidence in self. And so to summarize this point, the issue here is that when you do not see the world from your own perspective, then you are not godly. Because this chi has to be revealed to me in my own perspective, in my own way, which is why even within chiism, Alpha is not about religion. Alpha is about the individual self-realization. And that is why it is only Alpha that will tell you, even a child born in the house of a Dibia, he says, Anya, oh father Kogabu. Anya, oh Imam Kogabu. But Echefunaula, you can say no Mama we poesi.
You say
if you go to a pastor will tell you your whole problem will be solved only in the domain of his church. Same thing for a Muslim. It is not like that for the Dibia. The Dibia's job is not to indoctrinate you. The Dibia's job is to liberate you by telling you the way the chi and Eke has balanced in you. What is wrong in this individual? If he's not the one to give you the solution, he will tell you. He will refer you to the expert that will cure you, the individual. And so the point here is that we have a lot of work to do. It is lack of confidence. I remember when I started the journey, I got a lot of knocking down, talking down, that in my office, a few of us gather, we break cola, we throw our drink at the front of our office, we do it defiantly. In my home, I'm known for that. I do that, and they are getting used to it. And so we just have to be proud of what we do. And so to sum up this, our ancestors were not foolish. They understood this. And what they understood is that God must start from your domain. That is why every civilization formed a creation story to center around their own domain. Igbo creation story does not say it started from Yoruba. Yoruba did not say it started from Nupe. So once you lose your spirituality and you do not operate your word from your creation story, built on your spirituality, you are dislodged. That's the problem we're suffering today.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all.
Yeah.
I think one of the biggest issues that we need to talk about, that people need to be very clear, the purpose of Chiism, the purpose of this program is to explain to you what spirituality is. Spirituality is a state of thought directly linking you to the source, to the creator. In other words, when we say manachiso, that is power giving. That is to make you understand you're no less than. How can you be less than anybody when you're walking with Chineke? Monachiso, I walk with the creator. It's a spiritual consciousness that our people need to know. It is not about what somebody has set up as a systematic way of going to the creator when you can do the same thing in your own home, in the kitchen, in the living room, wherever you find solace, you can communicate with Chineke. Chiism is a state of consciousness that grows and unfolds through disciplined activity that relates to spirit, relates you to spirit. Directly. Not relate you to somebody who says the spirit is something and then you have to go that way. My voice is shaking, not shaking. I'm doing that on purpose because, quite frankly, that is how we are toyed. You know, this is not between you and Chineke. It's between you and the three. You talked about it earlier. You have to go through Jesus, Holy Spirit, then you get to God, however they phrase it. But what we're saying,
that is no longer spirituality. That becomes religion.
But that is what I'm saying.
That's no longer spirituality.
It's not
spirituality. Religion because religion builds a system for you and say you should go through the hierarchy, through the eye of another.
That's the point. That's the point I'm trying to make. Spirituality, on the other hand, is a connection between Mother God, Father God, however, whatever your language calls that direct communication. My father said, right where I am, from me to God, from me to Chineke, there is no distance. And for all of us who were tutored under him, there is no distance. From us to Chineke, there is no distance. That gives you power to think, to reason, to ask questions, to research based on your own knowledge of self, based on your own understanding that there is no difference, there is no distance. If you want to know something, you're connected to the greatest power, and that is the power of Chineke. You know, our people, on the other hand, as you have said earlier, what has happened to our people is that Chineke has been taken from us and put somewhere in the sky.
Right.
And you can't even touch that sky. Somebody's got to touch it for you. And if you don't give money, if you don't give tithes, if you don't buy them a jet, if you don't buy them a Mercedes, if you don't do all of that, you can't touch the sky. That's religion. So African spirituality, my brothers and sisters, is power within, tapping into the power within, because it's within us. Now, I'm going to let you say what you want to say. One of the greatest challenges that I find when I have to relate to people who have a need is how they come to me. I need you to do this for me. I want to start my business. I want you to do that for me. I want to do this. Can you give me this? Can you? Because we've been taught that it's someone else that will do it for you, even spiritually. Yeah. So you don't see within yourself the ability to crawl from the bottom, from the valley, and climb the mountaintop unless somebody does it for you. So when I get people who call me, Mommy, I need this, Mommy, I need that. And the first question is, so how have you gone about doing it, solving your problem? What have you done? Mommy, I don't have money. Who says everything starts with money? You have to search within yourself and find an avenue to even go get the money yourself. Not beg, beg, beg. So anyway, make a long story short, we have been taught that the power is outside of us. And consequently, we have to reach out to somebody else to do it for us. So we need to come back to spirituality, which means that the power is right where you are. You can tap into it whenever you want it. If you have any doubts, you can do your own research. You can be your own educator. If you have to get it from someone else, then read, do research, find out. Don't wait for manna to drop from heaven to give you everything. That's what religion has done. Our people now depend on something outside, not just outside of themselves, but outside of their community, outside of their country, outside of their race.
Mm-hmm. Professor Chiedozie's perspective, it's just something I'm enjoying right now when it comes to colonial mentality that we all seem to be suffering from, right? Where you put your stuff down here, and you elevate their stuff here, right?
That's right.
So they supplant their stuff with yours, and then they leave you mentally enslaved, right? Mm-hmm. Where you stop looking at your own spiritual, cultural perspective.
That's right.
In terms of your relationship with Chineke. But I'm going to go just a little bit deeper, then I'll let the professor have at it and just, educate us a little bit more on this mental servitude that we all seem to be experiencing in Africa, which is, to me, directly responsible for our condition. But I want to get a little deeper from the Ahai Keoke perspective when it comes to traditional ontology, right? The ontological hierarchy that the Godhead presides over. Like I mentioned earlier, there are 8 of them. At the bottom is the ancestor. But this is some Nkomi here. So let's all pay attention, especially our audience. In this H traditional ontology, at least as far as Igbo spiritual tradition is concerned, only one of them is spent outside the forces of nature. When your parents raised you and you were born and you were a child and then teenager and all that stuff, you were still under the guise of your parents. Somewhere along the line, you started to develop Ofonogu, symbol of truth and justice. The human conscience starts to grow in you. That is the spirit of Chineke, that little voice in you that is always telling you what is right and what is wrong, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, what decisions you should take, what decisions you shouldn't take. It is that Chineke walking with you till the day you die. There's never a separation from you and your conscience. If you listen closely with your ear to the ground, you will hear the footsteps of the ant. Chineke is the one that will walk with you once you become somebody who is able to discern right from wrong. Chineke now walks with you till the day you die. That is that voice that guides your actions, that tells you that you should be in unison with your environment, you should protect it, that tells you that you should respect your fellow human being, that tells you that thou shalt not lie, which every religion has. It's not a Christian thing. That tells you that thou shalt not kill, which every religion has. It's not a Christian thing. You don't need the Bible or the Quran to tell you that thou shalt not lie, kill, covet your neighbor's wife, bear false witness. You move from spiritual law to civic law. Everything that you consider a taboo in terms of human behavior and your relationship with your fellow human being is always somewhere in your mind. Now, if you don't hear those voices, then it's obvious that you're a mental case. If you hear those voices, but you don't listen to it, then it's obvious that you have no conscience and therefore you might just be evil. It's just the way it is. Once you start to hear that voice that tells you that $1 bill that is on that table is not yours, leave it alone. You leave it alone. You have listened to the positive aspect of your relationship with this inner voice. But if you go pick up that $1 bill, after that voice tells you that picking up that $1 bill and putting it in your pocket is wrong, give it back to who you belong to. But you listen to your own voice as opposed to the Chineke in you telling you that that is wrong. You're just an evil person. You're just a bad and terrible human being. Your relationship with your fellow human being, the way you comport yourself, what you value in life, is directly tied into your blessing. It's directly tied into your peace of mind. It's directly tied into the fact that this blessing, you just might end up not enjoying it. You know, a drug dealer that kills and murders but makes billions of dollars, where do you think they end up in the end? They're always looking back. The chicken. You start to wonder, what's chasing this chicken? You start to look around because your actions, even though you got the money, you're paying your bills, but your actions is what's haunting you. And in the end, you pay the price. I'm yet to see an evil person that ended up a happy person, that ended up not looking back. Hitler had all the power in the world, but in the end, how did he die? The Tsar, Russia, Ivan the Terrible, he had all the power, but ends up killing his own son. He ended up going mad, even though he was king. Your actions, listening to that faint voice in you, is directly responsible for the universe listening or not listening to your prayers being answered, the length of time that it will take that to happen, the kind of relationship that you will foster to be able to be in a position where you become successful regardless of what your condition is. Sometimes your condition cannot be changed. Sometimes somebody else is responsible for where you end up. During the Nigerian Civil War, we prayed and prayed and prayed, but your peace of mind was not dependent on you. It was dependent on the Ndawasa. And until that event came to its conclusion based on Akaraka, you just had to deal with it. You spent 4 years praying. Eventually, your prayers were answered, but it just wasn't answered overnight. The war didn't end the next day. The universe sorted it out. You were patient enough. You did what you had to do to survive. And in the end, your prayers were answered. So a lot of times, your prayers may take a little longer for Chineke to answer it. But certain things have to fall into place, which is directly responsible for the immediacy of the response to your prayer.
So, Chiedozie, thank you, Yudi. Thank you very much. Very well said. Chiedozie, what do you want to add to what he just said?
Well, I want to talk a little bit on this conscience thing. I think one of our students here, called Mazio Kwoku, was researching into Ilu, and he developed a thought system called UNILAG. So he's gathered almost 2,000 Ilus. So one of the in the process, he stumbled on what he calls the concept of nkoronkobi, that is seed of the heart, seed of the mind. And what is the seed of the mind, seed of the heart? It is what Dibia Chiedozie has just analyzed to us. The realization of the individual in tandem with the family, I and others, the community, in relation to the cosmic and the force that sustains all things. Now, that Nkoronkobi, the seed of the heart, is what makes us human. And is what makes us human. And that's the thing that if it's not developed, we are not humans yet. So a human being, Mando, Madiadi, it's not just the frame that you and I wear as male and female. The Mando is the realization of the beauty in the world. The beauty in the world. And that we are to radiate that beauty, make it radiant like the rainbow. And so, but we have to also develop mental alertness. To the mental alertness, it's what we call Ipeobi. That is when something occurs, I should be able to put myself in judgment, put myself in the tribunal, and judge myself honestly. In Christianity, it is known as the theory of the Beatitudes, the beatific vision. And that's why I say, if one does not know about the Beatitudes and he says he's a Christian or she's a Christian, the person does not understand Christianity. Because the foundation of all the Beatitudes is, how do you see the speck in my eye and you do not see the log of wood in your own eye? Which is what the Igbo has developed in conscience. Ikpeobi, Otaobi. Then you tell yourself, I was stupid. I'm in fact stupid. That is when you now go and say, Unyem, Dim, my friend, or Biko Bara, Emejoram go, Ota Maram. If you want, punish me. If you are not able to do that, then you are not able to tell yourself the truth. You are not able to look yourself in the eye. You do not need a physical mirror. You need only have to develop that attitude. From there, from that act of Ipeobi, Utaobi, then you correct yourself, which is different from a Mary. It's different from a Mary. A Mary is just one-ton worry, being worrisome for nothing. And one who goes into that is bound to, it can drop dead anytime because you are not solving any problem. You are just worrying for worrying's sake. So, but if you really want to solve the problem, you have to put yourself to judgment and be courageous to say yourself the truth. And so to sum it up, that is why for our ancestors, they did not leave morality to reason alone. They invoke the spirit force of the universe. And made us to develop that attitude of knowing good, bad. And then, unlike Aristotle that talked about the mean, our ancestors talked about the mean. They now gave us a regulator for how to attain that mean. The regulator for attaining that mean is Aro. Then Aro Nswala. These two, they constitute moral fringes that we should not trespass. As soon as we begin to trespass on Aro and Nswala, you already know that you are beginning to patronize Njo. And then you are disobeying your conscience. So the whole thing about the Alpha talk, that's why if you go to Alpha, the centerpiece of Alpha is Ago, because Ago is the one that who do not, it's someone who does not know how to manage himself as Agujia. But if you know how to manage yourself, Ago will push you towards your chi, and your chi takes over. And so that is why when Alpha is called down, say, then this is the Alpha. Gene bo Agujia. A camera Aguji here, Amakese. Ahajia. So the fine-tuning of the individual to fit into the universal force field in harmony with self, others, community, and the universe. That is what African spirituality is all about, and that's what Alpha divination is all about.
You know, I want to. We've got less than 5 minutes now, because I always want to make sure that we can repeat the show, because it's a wonderful thing. But I just want to remind everyone, and UD, before I let you continue, I want to remind everyone that it is time that we.
5 minutes. We are just trying to conclude. I will join you in 5 minutes.
One of the things that's imperative for us to be aware of is that our people have been taught to be ashamed. And we must use that word. All the wonderful things that we say about our spirituality is for naught if people do not abandon the shame that says that everything intrinsically wrong, everything is intrinsically wrong with us is something that Chineke created, so that we should be ashamed. We're not good enough. Somebody else, it's obviously due to conditioning, environmental conditioning, sometimes even within our own homes, that we're taught that the answer is outside of us. So this whole movement is not going to be an easy journey, obviously, because as I said earlier, we are riddled with shame. Shame is a difficult thing to flick off. You know, even in the middle of truth, it's still very difficult. So it's something that we're going to have to keep working on and never give up on. And I just want all my listeners to remember, when we talk about right where I am, God is, it's almost like breathing air. Okay, it's automatic. It's there. You don't have to ask for air. You don't have to get outside of your house and pause and wait for the air to come. It's already there. It's already there. You know, so Chineke is already with us. And what you're presenting to us are all the different perspectives of looking at what is ours, our spirituality. In other words, we're not different from anyone else. What we're thinking, what we know to be the truth, is just as good as anyone else's. But what is wrong is to assume that ours is wrong, and then we have to embrace something foreign. Even talking about Afa and Ifa religion, all of that, those are African spiritual, consciousness. And they're worthy of my time. They're worthy of our time. They're worthy of us learning all about it and embrace aspects of it that we find relevant. You're not going to find relevance in everything. But when you take the time and evaluate your own thing, you will see the truth in it. Everything you've talked about here is true. Everything Dibia Chiedozie has talked about is true. The only tragedy of all of this stuff is that many of us don't believe it because we are consumed by shame. We believe everything about us is wrong. So we don't take the time to research. We don't take the time to find out the truth. And so we live a life of lies. And those lies reduce our communities. Well, certainly it reduces our homes. It reduces our children. It reduces our communities and our nations. And we're always subservient to someone else. So the power of every human being lies in the spirituality that they practice. And I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about spirituality. That is that direct connection. We need to find that again. And I am very fascinated with what you have shared with us. And, I was going to say this was the final episode, but I don't think so. I think you got a whole lot more to say that we need to hear. So I'm going to invite you again to be a part of this. Well, we've gone over 1 hour, but that's okay. But I am going to invite you again, and we will have to continue this conversation. And next week, we're going to have my brother, Ichie Yudi Onwonyoha, who is in charge of Godian religion for Nigeria. And he's going to be a part of this conversation. And hopefully I'm trying to reel her in, the continental envoy for Godianism for Europe. I'm hoping she will join us as well. So we are expanding the conversation because it's important. We need to stop people from being ashamed of their spirituality. Instead, open your mind, see what's out here, see the perspectives that is African in nature, and take from it what you will, because we must. We can't complain anymore. You don't talk about what people are doing to you when you do it to yourself. It's us doing it to ourselves now. You can't blame anybody else. You know, it's us now. UD, final thought.
Spiritually speaking, I just wanted to reiterate the fact that there's nothing that we do in African spirituality that all other cultures don't do. In Chiism, Godianism, we believe that every human being consciously or unconsciously looks up to something above them as their source of inspiration. And that something is the Almighty Chineke, God in English, Allah in Arabic, Olodumare, Tamuna, Jiami, Ukulunkulu, Uvuzulele. Whatever you call the creator in your language, we all, regardless of what your religion is, if you believe that you are not responsible for life-creating forces, life-sustaining forces, you do believe in God. You pray to something above you. You have Chineke as your source of inspiration. So we're not doing anything different from what other cultures do. The problem or the point of disagreement is not whether we believe in the creator or not, because obviously, if we accept the fact that we're not responsible for life-sustaining forces, then we all believe in the same thing. It is the process to get to Chineke that is responsible for the violence, for the racism, for the prejudice, for the colonization, for the slavery, for all these evils that were justified through Abrahamic religions. It is about the process, and it's about religion being used as a weapon to disengage us from our rightful place in the universe. And finally, we in Chiism believe that religious concepts were inspired by a person's desire to offer thanks to God for Chineke's goodness and kindness to humanity. So we developed these systems of supplication to give thanks to the Almighty Chineke for Chineke's blessings upon us, for listening to our prayers, for providing us with the resources that we need to sustain ourselves. There's a difference between religion and spirituality. Religion simply means, in its primordial context, simply means a duty that a person feels responsible to perform in reverence to something greater than oneself, and that something is the Almighty Chineke. It is this realization that gave birth to religious philosophies influenced by environmental factors. And it is through this realization that spirituality is engaged, because it is your spiritual self that allows you to live within this environment in harmony, protect it, and protect one of the most important resources for your spiritual life, which is your fellow human being. It is what helps you to conduct a reasonable and spiritual or godly relationship with your fellow human being, because nobody wants to see somebody else running around taking what they want when they want it without any consequences. So we came up with the rules. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not this, thou shalt not that, so that you can have uniformity, have a relationship with your neighbor and your environment, because without these two, life does not exist. You will die physically and spiritually. So let's be good to one another. That's what Chiism, African spirituality, Godianism is all about. Do unto others as you have Chineke do unto you, and listen to your conscience, because that is Chineke walking with you till the day you die. That's all I got to say.
Thank you very much. Let me remove this. And how about you, Chiedozie?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dozie,
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Parting thoughts?
Yeah. My parting thought is this. Like we said, God does not push us beyond the level we push ourselves. So we are doing so much by talking, but I think we should have to go beyond talking to finding those institutions where we begin to catch them young, because that is where our undoing started. Like I said, the missionaries built schools to catch them young, and then built maternities and hospitals to catch the women. We have to, like Dibia said the other time, we have to begin to think about ways of formalizing African thought and begin to establish institutions whereby, so we should dream where we will have schools where we bring up children from in Chism from beginning, having hospitals, having workplaces where the people we train will work. Because once you ask our people, like my cousin asked me, all these your dreams and goals, suppose you train people, where would they use your ideology to work? You don't own any place of work. So a lot of the odds are against us, because to sum up, the African tree, like I usually say, is growing upside down. It has its branches to the ground. It stems up, and then the roots have become the branches. And so once the branches are now become the roots, they are down, it will develop adventitious roots that are not firm enough to hold the tree to the ground. And of course, the roots have to start adapting to become grow leaves. And branches, I don't know what kind of leaves they want to grow. So the summary of that is that it is only in Africa that it is when the man is getting to the grave that he begins to realize about his spirituality, about his culture, when he can hardly do little or nothing anymore. But the right thing is that we should grow, like Dibia Chiedozie said, no location, mama poesie. We should begin to grow within our spirituality. And and we cannot do that by talking alone, because a lot of the odds are against us. In as much as we want your children to speak Igbo, you practice spirituality, and then you'll find that even in your home, the crisis in the society is there. The children goes to school and they come back and they ask you, Dad, why is Satan black? Dad, why is this? I have to do a lot of explaining. And there's a lot. I noticed my children go through that conflict until my boy is the one who doesn't give a damn. My daughter had to ask, I said, Dad, when I explained to him, I said, look, when you look at those religions, don't look at what the colorations they give to you. Look at the 10 Commandments. Is it not in your conscience? He said, yes. And I took her down to our own spirituality. I told her about Menala. Did the Europeans tell our ancestors how to live? Our ancestors developed a society that did not require prisons and police stations.
Yes.
Did not know what the Scandinavian countries are just attaining. Our ancestors did it long ago. So what was the method which they used in achieving this? It was to allow the human being to get attuned to the cosmic force and to develop conscience and to develop communalism, whereby I don't think alone. I think as one who belongs in the midst of others, and that my act should not bring down others. I think we have to do just more than talk. We have to begin to think about how to develop institutions where we begin to catch them young, and amenities for making us have to develop our medicine, our perspectives of things, so that when you go to our hospitals and we are using our own perspective, it's curing people, it's giving you solutions that you cannot find other places. The Indians have done so, the Chinese have done so. We are the only ones left out. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, Chiedozie, a very good point about us starting our own institutions, because we have the African Continental University that we are trying to launch. And that's where you're going to learn. As a matter of fact, once we're done, I think I talked to you about it. I would like you to lecture there,
Okay. No problem.
Because that's very important. So we agree with you. That has to be done, and we're working towards that. I want to read this passage and we'll close. Life is depending on us to shine. Life is depending on us to shine as African people. Life is waiting for us to bloom. where we're still in our cocoons, life is begging us to come out and bloom. Be sure not to allow other people to shoot on you. Folks are always ready to tell you, let you know what you should or should not do, what you should or should not be. We need to stop that. What we should be doing, where we should go. Instead of spending time figuring out about their lives, they're going to tell us, people of color, what we should be doing. If your mother, father, sister, brother, friend is so sure of what you should be doing, let them do it. Remember, good advice is not always free. You pay dearly for it with little pieces of your life and yourself. It may be challenging to move beyond the expectations and demands of others. But I tell you one thing, remember, a good challenge strengthens your muscles. It is time for us to strengthen our muscles.
Sure.
And overcome these challenges and not allow people to define us anymore. Thank you so very much. It's always a pleasure. And I'm going to invite you next Sunday. If you have the time, we would like to continue. There are other things we want to talk about, but I think I want you to continue talking about yours as well. Dibia Chiedozie, what can I say? Dibia Chiedozie, thank you so very much. I'd like to thank my dear Peabody Onyoha for joining us, and Mecca Onyoha, thank you very much. Matt Lewis, thank you for joining. Ukuna Charles, Nosferatu, official Obi Onyoha. Let's see, we've got I don't know, Fela Hale or something. Please forgive me if I don't get your name correctly. Ibrahim, Thaler, Suleiman, and so on and so forth. There are some names I can't pronounce, so I'm going to leave that alone. But I love you all dearly. Thank you for joining us. This has been a very educative experience today, and we'd like to thank you, our dear brother, Chiedozie. I keep saying Chiedozie. It's Chiedozie Okoro. Thank you. I think that is very lucky
such a pleasure
to have you as their professor, and we welcome you. This you have a home here with us. Yes. If you can't make it this Sunday and you find a Sunday you can make it, you let us know, and we'll be more than happy to have you here.
No problem. I will be here on Sunday.
Okay, excellent. It's wonderful. Nice. Okay, you thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And on that note, we are going to end our program today.